First of all, what a great attendance today. When I first talked to this group, if you remember 6 months ago or so, and I told you, I have a personal and a professional interest in Sunday hunting. My personal interest was, to me, Sunday hunting's for Nolan. Nolan's my 23-year-old son. When we lived in South Carolina, we were fortunate that we had Sunday hunting. I worked in a job for a nonprofit that pretty much you worked Monday through Saturday. Sunday's all I had. So I'm a big turkey hunter, and that's where he learned to turkey hunt, is with me in the woods of South Carolina. And to this day, he is an ardent, fanatical turkey hunter because of that Sunday hunting and that time we have together. And I feel fortunate because I still get to share the woods with him today. And I think if I didn't have that Sunday hunting opportunity and I would have lost his interest in hunting, that's time that would have been stolen from me for the rest of my life. I got on my calendar when I got the call from the breeder. It's been on the waiting list for 5 years. He said, "Hey, I got your puppy if you still want him." I said, "I sure do." Went on to our regs and I blocked out all the turkey dates. And then all the meeting requests over the past few months have started coming in, and those dates get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the only date left for me and my puppy, my turkey dog Tucker, is Sundays, or at least what we have there. So there were a couple of meetings. I just said, you know what, I'm not going. I'm going turkey hunting with my turkey dog Tucker. But, we do have a lot to lose over this issue. That's the personal side. The professional side of Sunday hunting and why Sunday hunting is important. We just had our Board of Commissioners meeting at Seven Springs here a couple of weeks back. And we had two individuals, they're farmers, that came to speak to our commissioners and express their concerns about the amount of deer damage that they're receiving on their properties. These farmers are having a lot of damage done by bear and deer on their property. Let's face it, margins to a farmer are very thin. These folks work hard, they're trying to make a living, and deer populations are very high, especially where you have areas of private lands where you have a mix of areas open to hunting and areas not open to hunting, just where the deer go when hunting season comes around. What I find ironic about the whole discussion with the Farm Bureau is the best way, we constantly have the agricultural community coming to us saying, Game Commission, help us, and we want to do that. That's part of our job and responsibilities of Pennsylvania Game Commission, to support those farmers and to try to mitigate the damage that deer and bear do on their crops. Yet the biggest tool I can provide these landowners in the Farm Bureau is Sunday hunting. It's interesting when you look at the data in other states, and one of the things that you'll hear that why we shouldn't even include deer in this discussion, like there's no deer left in Pennsylvania, which is a baffling discussion all on its own, was that we'll over-harvest our deer. Well, let me first state, deer harvest and Sunday hunting are mutually exclusive discussions. One has actually nothing to do with the other. You could hunt every day of the year if you want to, and I can still manage the number of deer that I'm taking off the landscape. We do that through antlerless allocations. That's our job as an agency. We have technical experts that manage the deer herd to ensure that we take the harvest off the landscape that is sustainable and helps us reach a multiple of objectives. So the discussions about over-harvesting the deer, oftentimes, in my opinion, have been to muddy the waters, to slow the process down, to throw the sand in the gears, to throw the discussion on Sunday hunting slower and slower and slower. Because after all, white-tailed deer is the driver of hunting in Pennsylvania, always will be the driver of hunting in Pennsylvania. I was talking to a colleague of mine, actually just this morning in my office. I said, I just don't understand, in a state, when I looked at the facts and the figures and the statistics, it's one of the most, and I've lived and worked and hunted in so many other states. Pennsylvania offers such great deer hunting. He said, Bryan, he says, be appreciative of the fact that you hear those ardent hunters saying there's not enough deer and they're all gone because of the passion. And I thought about that. And I thought about North Carolina, South Carolina, each of those states has about 250,000 hunters. And Pennsylvania has 800,000 hunters. It's the passion of our hunters is why they get so uptight about deer. So he said, we should appreciate those other views, although maybe not fact-based and oftentimes off-center a little bit. But it's because people are passionate about hunting. We cannot afford to ever lose that passion for the hunters, or we'll end up like a lot of these states that just don't have the hunter base. It's my fear that if we don't remove barriers to hunting, we will continue to see the decline. I see it in my sales reports of hunting license sales every single month. This month, 4.5%. Last month, 3.5% decline year to date. These are figures that are not good. Whereas Sunday hunting probably isn't going to double our numbers, it can at least slow the blood. it can slow the loss of our hunters over the landscape. It amazes me the number of arguments we hear for and against Sunday hunting. Bottom line is, I had one individual say, I'm not going to go Sunday hunting. I said, guess what? You're not legislatively mandated to go Sunday hunting. If you don't want to go, don't come. Because if you don't go on Sunday, that's just more turkeys for me. That's fine. But, it's a personal choice. And I think about it from the landowner's perspective and the farmer's perspective. They're paying the taxes on those lands. They're trying to raise their crops. They should have the tools made available to them with Sunday hunting to allow them to better manage the deer and bear populations on their land. At the same time, they pay taxes. Who are we to say, nah, you can watch football on Sunday, but you can't hunt on Sunday. It just doesn't make any sense. Yesterday, I worked yesterday. Many of you probably did. I would have loved to have been in the woods today, out on a deer stand with my bow in my hand. And I can't because it's illegal. And I just want to close and say, this is going to change because of you. That grassroots support, I've heard this over and again, because my voice doesn't count. Your voice does count, and your legislature does listen. Don't ever forget that number one rule. Your voice counts, and they do listen. They may not agree with you, but they do listen. So I look at this upswelling. You are moving the needle. Congratulations on what you are doing for conservation in Pennsylvania, and keep up the great work.